Hello, students. I thought I would try a different intro this time, but it really didn't work very well. So I don't know, maybe I'll cut it out, maybe I'll leave it in there. But hello and welcome to another public speaking video for your class. It's still spring 2022, and this is video 3, and this is about supporting points. So in the last video, we talked about how to come up with a topic. In this video, we're going to talk about the ways in your textbook, in the Dewberry textbook, Advanced Public Speaking, the way that supporting points are talked about. And I'm going to kind of give my opinion on them, but I'm going to kind of go over them and explain kind of what they mean in the book. And he's got a perspective on it. I have a perspective on it. We don't disagree, but I think maybe hearing me talk about it might help you understand different ways to support it. The first thing you should know is that you do not have to just have facts to support a speech. In fact, a lot of people, that's funny that I did that. A lot of people would say that they only make decisions based on facts, but how true is that? There's lots of different ways that people make decisions based on things. Mostly it's about their perception of the world and what's right and good, what's going to work, and what's truthful. All of that's a matter of human perspective, and it's not a bad thing that we don't decide everything on facts. Sometimes facts are not available for the things we have to think about. That's something that people don't consider that often, is a lot of things don't have factual support behind them. So what I would recommend is thinking about supporting points as ways of getting people to see your perspective and how it's either connected to what they already believe, it's something that is good by their own standards, or something they were just kind of unaware of and they need to be brought into it like that. So instead of thinking about it as fact versus fact, some climactic battle, some huge battle that's going to happen, instead of that, you want to think about it as ways of getting people to see the world your way and maybe saying, you know what, you have a really good point there. That's actually a very good position to take. I think I'm going to align my viewpoint more with yours. So with that in mind, let's talk about the different ways you can support your topic. Now, the thesis, which is the traditional way we talk about a speech topic, Dewberry talks about it as a claim. And the reason he does that is he thinks most speeches are making a claim about something. He's got a good point there. I would say all speeches attempt to move somebody, but the main idea of the speech is the thing that you want people to move towards. Evidence or support or proof are explanations of why they should move that way. So that's the way to think about it. So there's a lot of things you can add to your speech. There's a rich list of things here that you can add to the speech. The first one that we're going to look at is authority. And authority is defined as what an expert thinks about something. So this is the traditional, let's go find what an expert thinks. If you're talking about cars, go find an expert on cars. You're talking about Formula One cars, get somebody who's an expert on this. They've either studied it, they've done research on it, they have a formal kind of interest in it, and they've researched it, and they know it from that point of view. Now, an expert doesn't necessarily have to have done something. They just have to be an expert on it. For example, we have experts on whales, and those people have never been a whale, and it's fine. Because what they have is method, and they have process, and they have accountability. And that's what makes expertise really good. These people have a method, a process, and accountability. They have a way of looking at something, a method. They have a process. How do I get my viewpoints shared? I have to put it in a special form. I have to put it in a very special order, like an academic article, like citations and things like that. And then I have to get it approved. It has to get out there. And it has to be something that other people who also have that expertise agree with and think it was done well. So authority, a doctor is a good person for authority for a medical question or something like that. But there are different kinds of doctors. And you might want to get the one that has the kind of specialty, the kind of expertise that you think is best. So that's one way you can back up the things you're saying. Now, these things are going to go into the speech to support the reasons why you think the thesis is something the audience should move more towards, identify more with, adhere closer to, this kind of thing. So think about it like that. So authority, that's an obvious one, right? But what else do we have? Well, we have another kind of authority, a sketchier kind of authority, which is testimony. Someone who saw or experienced something. Now, these people don't have formal training or formal expertise in researching it, but they were either there and they wrote about it, or they gave an interview about their experience, or they've had an experience like it and they can talk about it. So this is something in our contemporary culture in 2022 that we're kind of having a crisis and a national discussion about in the United States, which is the idea of authority and testimony. So are the experts right? Are the people and what they're experiencing right? When you think about things like police brutality or police violence, police racism and discrimination, is a question of testimony. People are saying these things have happened to them. People are saying the police behave these ways in their neighborhood. The experts are saying, no, that's not the case. Look at the data. Look at the research. Look at the arrest reports. This is a conflict between these two kinds of evidence, which indicates that one isn't better than the other. They're just better at different things. So that's something that I think is really important to think about, is that authority gets you one kind of credibility or one kind of believability in your speech. Testimony, another kind. So it's great to have both. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how you bring these things into the speech. You bring them in not by saying, well, the New York Times said or a study said. You bring them in by saying, Dr. Smith said in an article called da-da-da in the New York Times. Maximum credibility. Because what you're highlighting is that you're bringing in an authority. The second one, testimony. Someone who was in a fire or was in the tornado, or someone who experienced what it was like to work at a harassing workplace, like the recent controversy with Blizzard Activision in video games, where it was a horrible place to work for women and other underrepresented groups. They are not experts on that. They have testimony about that. So you want to identify who they are and why we should listen to them. What is the nature of their testimony? What's the nature of their experience? Highlight that. Don't say a study or a news report. That's fine to say, but you're shorting yourself. You're hurting your ability to connect with the audience because you're not offering it in the most accessible and powerful way you can offer that information to them. Next is our good friend statistics and facts. Now, I was kind of mean on facts at the beginning, but I just think we rely on facts for too much. So statistics and facts are two different kinds of data that researchers and scholars call quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative data is numbers, so that's statistics. How many people are killed by drunk drivers? How many people's lives would have been saved by the use of seatbelts? How many people's lives are saved by clean needle programs who are addicted to heroin? Things like that. How many children are in the foster care system today? That's data that can be used to prove a point, such as there's a great need for people to adopt. You would look at that number, and that number would help you prove that claim to the audience. That's quantitative data. Qualitative data is a little bit different, which is interviews, research, the accounts of people, stories of people's lives, things like that. Qualitative data are things like asking people how they feel about something. Rank this from best to worst, or what do you think this advertisement means? What do you think when you see that image on that poster? And from this data, we get a sense, as we combine it and we code it and judge it, we get a sense of how people are reacting to the world, how they judge certain things. What are their reactions to this? Both types of data are good, but as you can see, they prove very different things. One is very, very precise and very cold. One is very warm and a little bit more human, but not very precise at all. Qualitative data is not as precise as quantitative data. That doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's different. So you want to think about what kind of connection are you trying to make? What is this proof doing to help move the audience towards your point of view? Remember, it's about moving them towards you. So are you going to use data? Are you going to use statistics? Are you going to use facts? What are you going to do? How is this going to work? And that'll help you understand what it is you're trying to do there, or what information you want to use. Maybe you don't want to use any of that. Maybe that doesn't help you make the connection you want to make. It's possible. You don't have to have those things in there. They're an option, though, for helping you make that point. Maxims. Maxims are old sayings that sum things up. That's the best way I can put it. He defines it differently in the book. I can't remember what he says, but a maxim is something like an old saying that your grandma or grandpa, your parents would say that sums up a little bit of wisdom from lived experience. So it's like, as we all say, blah, 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 blah. And it would be like some catchphrase that everybody says is true. A lot of them are things like, it is what it is, or people say other things about stuff. One of the things I just used recently is one that college students use a lot, which is a maxim, which is, it's not as important what you take as who you take, meaning that the quality of the professor can be quite different between different classes. And so you want to make sure you're taking a good professor rather than just any old class. And I think that's a good example of a maxim that maybe you can relate to. There are great big books of these quotes and maxims and proverbs, and for some parts of our history in the United States and global history, they were considered the best possible evidence you could have for a claim. So they're not that today, obviously. I think statistics and facts have that title today, but that doesn't mean these aren't useful. So these can be ways of helping an audience see why they should move closer to your thesis. Another one, laws and customs. We're here at the bottom three now. Laws and customs. Laws are written down rules, either local, federal, part of your institution. Our institution, our university has laws, rules that you have to follow by virtue of being a student here. Customs are unwritten rules, unwritten things that happen that are traditional or cultural or part of the environment, part of the place that you live. These can be used to help prove a point too. You can say this is obviously important to people because we have a law that specifies that. Or you can say we all understand the tradition of gift giving at Christmas, which means that we find it pleasurable, we find it important to give to other people. We find it important, so we're not as selfish as we might think we are at first glance. So that'd be kind of an interesting point. That's kind of an interesting point to make. So social rules or written rules are not things just to be followed, but they can be used to prove points about society and about the way people are. So think about that as an unusual way that you can offer more support or more proof for your speech. Next are precedents. Precedents are something we've done before, something that we followed, something that happened. It should be a model for how we're going to go forward. This is the way law works in the United States. The history of law, the way law is dealt with, is when the Supreme Court judges on something and they look at the past decision and they try to keep the decisions in line with what they've done before. It's called making the decisions based on precedent. That can also work in daily life. So you might say, well, the reason that this is the way it should be is we've always thought this way about other things, or we've been here before and we made a similar decision. And that's the way you can use precedent as support for one of your claims. Finally, examples. Examples are individual cases that really show support for the general idea very well. So you might say, an ideal student is someone who blah, 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 blah. Like my friend Alice. And then you talk about Alice in particular detail to show that she's an example or a case study of what it is that you are talking about in the general. So an example is very narrow and very particular, but through its narrowness and particularness and what you can say about it, it says a lot more about the general idea and kind of supports the general idea too. So examples are really, really powerful, very useful ways to prove things, particularly about well, actually, I don't think it's particular. Any kind of speech you can use to. I don't think they're restricted from any speech. So examples can be very, very powerful use. They're almost as powerful as facts and statistics, I'd say, if you find some good ones to use. So those are the modes of proof that are offered by Dewberry in the book. Let me know what questions you have about it. I think that they're all valid to be used, and you want to use them as kind of a brainstorming kind of method to think about what things support what it is that you want to say. But remember, you're not trying to change somebody's mind 100%. In public speaking, what we're doing is trying to show people reasons that they already kind of gel with, the feelings they already have, of why they should move more towards the thesis that you're presenting or the claim that you're presenting, why they should be more in line with it, not less in line with it. You're trying to move them towards it. Any amount of movement, I think, is successful. So you don't want to give something up because it doesn't give you 100% agreement, scorched earth, burning down all the opposition arguments. That's not really the way it functions. Think about it as what provides the most reason for them to move in line with me, and then you have really, really good support for your speech.